Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've recorded meetings and conventions here in Southern California since 1998. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994, and I got sober in a small town called Santa Maria. I moved to Los Angeles when I had 5 years sober and started recording meetings shortly after I got here. In 2013, I started recording conventions. So please enjoy the channel. Please like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Just click right down there. Thank you.
Now it's time to introduce our main speaker for tonight. And the main speaker is John.
My name is John. I'm an alcoholic. And I am sober today by the grace of God and by the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Jerry, for asking me. 51 weeks ago, I was here to speak. The reason I know that is that the night I spoke here last, I gave my wife a cake for 24 years. And next week, on Wednesday, she will be sober 25 years. You guys got to wait a minute here. We all figure out what I'm going to talk about at the same time. And I do not do well with change, and they've closed the curtain. Then they lowered the lights. The Pope is dying. Well, I guess I'll tell you, the feeling that I remember the most growing up was confusion. And that is because I had, well, actually I still have, my mother is still living. She's 96 years old. She lives in the house I was raised in Illinois. And my mother is a convert Catholic. And you really got to hear me when I tell you that that is the worst kind, because she did it on purpose. Now, my mother has worn out 4 Christian Bibles in my lifetime from reading them. And she has turned out to be the least judgmental, most tolerant human being that I know. Once, just for the hell of it, I read the Christian Bible. I did not find anything in there that I identified with. But somehow my mother spent my childhood trying to teach me how the world was supposed to work. And then at 5:30 in the evening, my alcoholic father would come home and show us how the world really worked. And what I remember is being confused, just confused. And so when I was 15 years old, myself and 4 of my friends that are still my friends, one of whom is sober, we stole a bottle of Seagram 7 from somebody's dad, and we went down to the park that night, and we took the cap off this little bottle of Seagram 7, and we passed it around the car, and everybody took a little pull, you know, and it was not like the movies. You know, in the movies, they'd fire down a shot and go, ah. And what I remember is firing down a drink out of this bottle, and then there was this enormous amount of choking and gagging and coughing going on. And I'm kind of passing this bottle on to the next guy. But by the time the bottle got around to me the next time, this absolute miracle had happened. There was this like really warm, soothing kind of feeling that kind of worked its way down the inside of my body, and it kind of got down to my stomach where I live, and it spread out. And for the first time in my life, everything was just all right. As a matter of fact, the very first thought I had was, so this is why my father drinks. Now, I did not become some tongue-chewing, babbling idiot alcoholic down at the corner of 5th and Main the next day. What happened was I became the kid in high school who, whenever any of us were going anywhere, I became the one who always suggested that we drive by the Black Cat liquor store, every town has one of those, and get a case of beer or whatever. And so I kind of became the weekend drinker, that kind of thing. And I don't know about, imaginary lines and whether you're born an alcoholic or you drink your way over one or whatever. But I do know that my story, which is the only one I have, in 1962, I graduated from high school and I made a tiny mistake in judgment. I joined the Marine Corps. About a year and a half later, Lyndon Johnson, who was then the President of the United States, made a huge mistake in judgment. And off I went to sunny Southeast Asia for the next 17 months. During the Vietnam War, or during the period of time, there were 3 Vietnam Wars, and I just happened to be in the first one. During my Vietnam War, the Budweiser Brewing Company and the Schlitz Brewing Company and Pabst and Miller's and so forth used to take these ocean-going barges, and they would push them across the ocean or pull them or whatever. I don't know how the hell they got them there, but they got them there. And if you had a little NCO card that showed that you were in charge of a group of people, they would give you 2 6-packs of beer per person per day for free. And I was in charge of a group of 12 people. And I got to pick who they were. And so I picked Christians. One of them was even from Detroit. The other thing that was plentiful in Vietnam was marijuana, which I tried to smoke, but it hurt my throat, and so I didn't smoke marijuana, I chewed it. Well, I mean, this is a long time. This is back in the day. This is before back in the day, okay? This is back, they didn't even call marijuana, they didn't even weigh it in kilos, it was pounds. And they would deliver pounds of marijuana in the middle of a fucking firefight. And the best marijuana on the planet costs $9 a pound. That was one of my I couldn't get used to it when I came back to the United States and they were smoking these little bullshit, tweaky little paper clip bullshit, and I'm sitting there looking at those fools going, why bother, But I used to take Copenhagen, and then I would scrape about 3/4 of it out of the can, and then I'd get a bunch of marijuana and mash it up, put it in there, and put about 1/4 of a shot of brandy in there. And you put a pinch of that shit between your cheek and gum, You can go just about anywhere you want to go, you know. Plus, you cannot get in any trouble because you just keep that Copenhagen can, you know, in your pocket, and pretty soon it makes a ring, and they just think you're some fucking redneck, you know. I came back to the United States in late 1965, and I was going to be normal, which may be the funniest fucking thing I'm going to say all night, and none of you laughed. I enrolled in college. Man, I was trying to be normal. But stuff kept getting in the way. You know, like the Students for a Democratic Society and I learned a lot of things back then. I learned that I live in a country that allows everyone in the country to have an opinion, but it need not be based on truth or fact or experience. And I got so incensed about that one night, I tried to kill this guy. But I was too drunk to chase him. So I stole a Volkswagen and chased him in the Volkswagen. And he ran onto the campus, and in the middle of the campus they had this, you know, Civil War statue and all that bullshit that they have on every campus. And this poor fool climbed up, and he's holding onto this horse, and I'm backing this Volkswagen up, bam, and driving it into this statue, bam, trying to knock him off. So I could run over him, you know. Well, the university had no sense of humor about that shit at all. So I left Illinois and I moved to California, and I accidentally fell into a job. I mean that. I accidentally fell into this job, and for the next 4 or 5 years, that was my everything I touched turned to gold period. I continued to drink. It is still an amazement to me as I look back that the society that I live in and the society that I'm a part of actually let me and people like me walk around loose. It's just an amazement to me. Anyway, to make a long story short, I moved from California because of the death of my younger brother. His death caused me to kind of rethink my life and ask myself if I was happy, and I think that might have been the first time I ever asked myself that question, because being born and raised in the Midwest, it's like, you know, happy is not part of the equation. You know, it's kind of like in the Midwest, it's like if the crops are ready to be harvested, you go harvest the fucking crops. You do not have a meeting to discuss it. You don't sit around and talk about how you feel about harvesting the crops. You just kind of go harvest the crops. So after my brother died, I'm sitting around going, what's the point? You know, I had a big house down in Orange, in the city of Orange in Orange County. I had a 5-bedroom cabin at Lake Arrowhead, which I had built so I could go relax, and I was only in it twice in the 2.5 years I owned it. I had a boat that I was never in before I sold it, and on and on and on. And I'm sitting there going, man, this ain't working. And it never dawned on me that the reason it wasn't working was the quart of whiskey I was drinking every night. It was something else. And so I sold everything in California. I resigned this job. I moved to Bozeman, Montana, where everybody drinks with both hands and both feet, and that is normal. I tried to go to college there, but the truth is that I got bored. And one day, this other Vietnam veteran came to me and he said, you know, I'm bored. And I said, yeah, I know what you're talking about. He said, well, why don't we buy a nightclub? So we did. Which is the best job for a practicing alcoholic on the planet. I mean, come on. It's like they deliver the booze by the truckload. You're in charge of who counts it, so there can be huge discrepancies in the inventory, and you can blame it on a spook or whatever, or the employees, you know. About a year later, another Vietnam veteran came to visit us, and he was in the illegal substance transportation business. You know, that last couple years you're drinking, how everything seems reasonable? You ever know that? Well, it seemed reasonable that this guy had a really good business going, but he wasn't running it like a business. You know what I mean? So I decided that he and I should be partners, and he thought that was a good plan. And so all of a sudden, our illegal substance transportation business kind of got out of hand. I mean, like and this is back in the day when the drugs were big, you know. I mean, it wasn't like little bullshit things. I mean, it was like bales and shit like that. And I remember one night we had bought 400 pounds of confiscated marijuana from a major northwestern city police department. And we're going to meet out on this road, you know, at 3 a.m., which means we're there at midnight, and they get there at 12:15. And everybody's armed to the fucking teeth and nervous, you know. And I remember standing there thinking to myself, there is something wrong with this picture. I never once made a conscious, deliberate decision to do this. But then I kind of shined that on. You know, it's kind of like that moment of clarity that we all have, you know. I mean, my truth is I had 10 moments of clarity, and 9 of them I ignored. You know? So, what happened is I managed to drink myself into a condition known as alcoholic paralysis. And I was in this hospital for 6 days and 6 nights, and I would love to tell you that I hit my physical bottom as the result of that. But the truth of the matter is I was 30 years old, and by the second day, I was starting to feel better physically. And the truth for me is I probably could have gotten out of that hospital and probably drank for another 10 years before I killed myself physically. But emotionally, I was laying in this bed and I'm running all these bad decisions through my head where I had hurt people deeply. And I guarantee you, I never woke up and I was never raised by my mother to be a person who went out and hurt people. I'll tell you exactly what got me to Alcoholics Anonymous other than the miracle I'm going to tell you about later. What got me to Alcoholics Anonymous is that in 1971, I don't know if you noticed or not, but alcoholics are like the flame, and all these really sick people are like the moths, and they just kind of come around and then they get burned and fried and die. But there was this girl she was I think 19 years old, and she just loved me to death. You know, which means I treated her like shit. And in 1971, I got her pregnant. And my solution was to put her on a plane and send her to Phoenix, Arizona to get an abortion. And she then spent 4 months in a mental institution. And I said to myself, I will never do such a thing to anyone else again as long as I live. My word is my bond. And about a year later, this young woman came back to Bozeman, Montana, and I got her pregnant again, this time with twins. And my solution was to send her to Phoenix, Arizona to abort twins. And she then spent the next year in a mental institution. And that is what got me to Alcoholics Anonymous. That story and 500 others just like it. But the truth is, I didn't know about Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, we didn't have public service messages on cable. We didn't have fucking cable. We didn't have public service announcements every 15 seconds back in the day, or before back in the day. Every third celebrity on the planet was not in People magazine running their lip. There was no People magazine, now that I think of it. So my truth is I was lying in this hospital bed and I had one person come to visit me the whole 6 days, and that was the Budweiser distributor of Bozeman, Montana. And I didn't know it then. I later found out, through my own experience, that he probably stood in the hallway for a half an hour before he came in to see me, and he reread the chapter on working with others. That's the one where they give you all the clues on how to go in there and get the sick one and stab him right in the fucking heart while smiling. And this guy came in and he said, "You know, I used to drink. And when I did, the people I loved the most are the people I hurt the most." And baby, he had my attention, because that was me. And then he went on and he said, "You know, but a few years ago I found this outfit called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I have been sober for 17 years. And this is your lucky day, because tonight is our one meeting a week of Alcoholics Anonymous in Bozeman, Montana. And if you want to go, I'm willing to take you." And my little voice came up and said, "Okay." And I have no idea why. It just said, "Okay." And that night he came pick me up and took me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I am absolutely grateful that those 10 men did not all decide that night to stay home and watch television. Those 10 men were sitting in this little room, in the guy's living room, actually. I'll bet you money if it's still there, I could still drive right to that house. And those 10 men saved my life. Boom, long story short, a couple of months later, about 60 days sober, 45 days sober, it became necessary for me to leave Bozeman, Montana late at night under the cover of darkness. Had to do with my illegal substance transportation business. I came to Southern California, and you know what? I am sober a couple months from now. I will be sober 31 years. And I have never stopped learning in those 31 years. That's because in the big book, they have the little midget people that get in there and change shit. They do. One time I'd read this one old shitty big book so many times, I think I had every goddamn thing underlined in 164 pages, and I could still find shit I'd never seen before. It's an evil book. But as I look back now, I see now, for me, this is my own personal opinion. This has nothing to do with AA. This is my belief. I see now for me that I was one of the people that God wanted to be close to Him. And so He gave me a disease, the solution to which was to get close to Him. Otherwise, I'd have missed it. I got lucky when I moved to Southern California because I bumped into this guy up in Montana. He was an old ex-Marine, the Budweiser guy. And I got lucky. I came to Southern California and I ran into a guy named Fred Ellis. And Fred was an old ex-Marine. And he sat me down and he said, look, if you want to stay, here's how the big boys play. You got a choice here. You can be a fringe player, you know, one of these people out here on the edge doing the old first step and a 12-step, and that might work for a while. Or you can get right here in the middle with the big guys. And that is where we fulfill the conditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so we got busy. And it was interesting. I tried really hard only to listen to the people who'd been there and done that rather than the people who just kind of had opinions. And these old timers kept saying to me, oh shit, the 4-step gets all the juice, but it's the easiest one of the bunch. It's a piece of paper and multiple choice. And everybody talks about it. Blah, 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 blah. And so I sat down, I had my little big book open, and I'm going through, and, that fucking Mr. Brown threw me to begin with there, but I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, are you shitting me? Get out of here. I mean, I'd have snapped his neck. That's just... So I get this inventory done, I go over to Ellis's house, and as I look back now, I can just imagine what a chore it was for him to keep awake. Listening to my pitiful little ass story. I've been there now. I mean, I always get a good night's sleep before I hear a 5th step. I drink at least 2 pots of fucking coffee. Man, they're going to come in with their big deal, and I'm going to try hard not to yawn. I did the 9th step. I got to the 9th step, and it was kind of like I called up all the people and made my emotional amends and, that kind of stuff, and I started paying off shit. And I mean, that was an experience, too. The book says made direct amends, and that's what I read, and made direct amends. And so I remember I owed this stuff in my life, and I owe you this money, and I can't pay all of it, but I'm going to pay a 4th of it, and then next month another 4th, and so on and so forth. I send it off. They send me back a letter saying, thank you very much, but we wrote that off as a bad debt 6 years ago, and here's your check back. And I write them right back, fuck you. You're taking this goddamn check. My life depends on it. And I get another letter back. Oh, thank you very much. We've given it to this charity in your name, blah, 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 blah. So I write to another one of these companies, and it's like, I think I owe you this money and blah, 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 blah. I get a letter back from them. Oh, we owe you. Well, that last couple of years, check. Have you ever noticed the signatures get bigger on a check? You're more drunk and you're corner to corner. Shit, I'd paid them twice, And by the time my 3rd birthday came around, I was all done with my amends. Except there was this one little niggly kind of thing where I kept thinking to myself, I know there's a bunch of money I stole from people and shit like that, and I don't remember who they are, and I don't remember how much, and I really want to do this thing because I want to be with the big guys, And I had a little construction company then, and they were building the Marina Center at the time. And they were over budget and behind schedule and all that shit, and I didn't have another job starting for 3 weeks. So I took my little crew over there for 3 weeks, and I helped them finish that building on time and as close to budget as was humanly possible. And I never charged them a dime. so that when it was all over and done with, I could go out in the back parking lot and have a little chat with God and say, now I think I'm done. And right away, I felt the yes feeling. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's like when you work the 6th step. I mean, when you are entirely ready because you've tried all your solutions and they don't work, that will usually get you entirely ready to have God remove your character defect. And then when you finally wake up and go, oh, there is a step following 6 that starts with humbly, which is a whole new concept for me, and you humbly ask God to remove it, you can actually feel it go away. What a deal. Anyway. I just did that Easter. You know, what happens is, I'm running out of time, so I got to talk fast. You know, I used to sponsor a lot of people and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then somewhere around 15 years or 17 years or something, there's some point in time there where it's like newcomers are chicken shit to come up and talk to you. And so for the last 10 or 12 years or so, I've just been sponsoring the same old guys who don't need to be sponsored, really. I mean, shit, they're sober 25 years. And I think sometimes they think I need to be their sponsor, so they call up with lame bullshit. Well, this last year, the big dude has decided to send me a newcomer who just got back. He's a combat veteran from Iraq. And then he turns around and sends me another one who's a Marine combat veteran from Kosovo. And I, quite frankly, thought all that combat bullshit was way back there somewhere and long since dealt with. And I have discovered yet one new layer of the artichoke. I never have liked that onion fucking story. You know what I'm saying? You peel that onion, you end up with a fucking onion. If you kind of peel away the little layers on the old artichoke, you end up with a heart, which is a much better deal. Anyway, just Easter Sunday, we're having dinner at our house, and one of these young combat guys is there, and he's sharing this story about how some loving child of God who doesn't know any better was giving him a hard time because of his service to his country in Iraq. And like jumping backward in time 40 years, my first thought was to get in the car, drive to this guy's house, and snap his fucking neck. And I'm sitting there going, holy shit, where did that come from? And I go, you know, it is still in me. And I just got more work to do. I know a lot of people sober all over the world. And I know people who are sober, shit, I know a guy with 53 years. And he assures me that he has not arrived at perfect yet. So for the last 2 or 3 days, I've been getting up and having a little deeper chit-chat with the big dude. And the other day, God sent me an answer through a book, just a book, you know, like a little cheap-ass drama book. It had a bumper sticker. It referred to a bumper sticker in this book, and the bumper sticker said, "For those who have fought for it, freedom has a flavor that the protected cannot know." And I read that, and I read it again, and I read it again, and then, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," came into my heart. And one more time, I got to see that all of my answers are there as soon as, number one, I discover there is a problem, and number two, have very serious conversations with the big dude. My biggest secret when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous was that I would never be able to just be a normal person. And you guys don't have a clue what that means. This young guy is having a hard time staying sober because he miswrote down two numbers. He miswrote down some coordinates on a fire mission. Now, you've all made mistakes, but the consequences of your mistakes are a little bit smaller. And as he's sitting there crying and telling me this story, I'm sitting there crying, telling him that story because I'd done the same thing. But in 30 years, I have come to discover that there is nothing on this earth that God cannot forgive. I told you I got this wife. And I love her to death. Last week she had an emergency surgery, and I was in Toronto. And man, I'm moving heaven and earth, to get back here. And even on the way back, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, what in the hell would I do if something happened to her? I wouldn't have a clue. Anything soft about me, any round edges that exist on me, are as the result of this loving woman who had just walked right by my curmudgeon bullshit and just loved me. And I'm talked too long, and thank you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.